What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here. So we are back with another video in the segment that I'm going to be calling the Cynical 17 because, well, we're all the 17s, right? All the fans, and out of all the fans, I'm probably one of the most cynical. I've accepted it. I don't know. My life has led me to this point where essentially even when things are going well, I'm always still cautious to get too excited. But focusing on what has been the first four matches of the season, obviously I did a video after the first match, so not really that far in advance, but there are some things to talk about because, yeah, I mean, things seem to be going pretty smoothly. We're scoring goals. We, drew one match, but overall the play seems to be overall more enjoyable. The attack is better. The defense seems to be holding their own so far. So yeah, I mean, things seem to be going pretty well. I will go ahead and throw out the caveat. We have not faced anybody with a winning record yet. Now, granted, it's still early on in the season, so things can change a lot. And in the MLS especially, it really feels like things change so often. And that's one of the things that does make the MLS kind of unique is that it tends to be anybody's year every year, which can be exciting, but also it leads to moments where you have one good year and then the next year you just fall off. And that happens a lot because no one team can dominate the league because of how the league is set up to make things seem a bit more equal. So some people see that as a good thing. I personally see that as like, well, if anybody's having a bad year, they're just like, whatever, we'll go again next season. We'll just finish bottom of the league, get the top draft pick, and boom, we'll try again. I don't really like that because I feel like it's much more exciting if you have something to fight for no matter where you are in the table. So it's because of how much I've watched. I grew up watching the English Premier League, so I'm used to seeing teams, no matter where they were, there was something to play for. They fought with every match. It didn't feel like any team ever just sort of gave up because if they did, they would be down in the second division, which is not as good. So, yeah, I'm not a big fan of how the MLS is set up, but I can see how for some people it's exciting to know that any year could be your year because if you get the right draft pick, if you get the right players in, suddenly now, the teams that were at the top, maybe they weren't able to hold on to their players, or maybe because of how the pay structure is, they weren't able to bring anybody different in, and so they're set up very much the same way. So there's definitely parity in the league, and that for some people is enjoyable. For me personally, it's just not. But no, looking at our first four matches though, three, in my opinion, decent performances, and then one really good performance, and that was the one against Portland. Now, I didn't get to watch the Charlotte or the Portland matches all the way through. Toronto I saw most of, and then I was at the San Jose game. So overall, like I'm kind of got a bit of an idea of how things are going. The play seems to be moving a lot smoother. Players seem to be connecting a lot better. There are still some moments where it feels like, the players are sort of doing their own things at times and not really necessarily following a specific style of play that the manager is setting them out to do. So I don't know how much Pineda has to do with our good form and how much of it is just we have some really good players that are finally finding their feet in the MLS. But it does definitely feel like there's more of a team feel this season, as where last season it felt like it was just a bunch of individuals running around trying to make something happen. So that's good to see that it's starting to feel more like we are playing together. So I'm liking to see that. Obviously, the big talking point is Almada right now, and he is finally finding his momentum in the MLS. Now, what that means for him, we'll see. Because I would not doubt if in the summer some bigger clubs come knocking and he decides, I'm gonna follow on out of here and follow Almiron and find a bigger club. Because yeah, I mean he probably needs to be playing in a better league than the MLS, but he's showing his quality though. And honestly, I do think that's something the MLS does sort of have going in its favor, is that players can come here to showcase their quality because the quality all around the league in general is not that good. So if you're a good quality young player, you come here and you work your butt off, you'll get shown off very, very well. Almada, Almiron, they're showing this is what happens when you come to the MLS and you're a good player and you work hard. PD Martinez is an example of a good player who didn't work hard because he thought, this league's going to be cakewalk, and then didn't work hard and slowly fell off. But Almada right now, I mean, not only just the goals that he's getting, but the way he's playing, the way he's dominating the matches right now. He just got his first goal for Argentina in a friendly against, I think it was Panama. So he's definitely flying high at the moment. And that free kick goal against Portland was just that's next level. That's something that's not going to be seen in the MLS for at least a little while. So yeah, he's really showing why he's a good player. And again, I do think there are going to be clubs coming and knocking. The question is not whether he's going to go to a bigger club, it's how much are we going to get for him to go to a bigger club. Because obviously Almiron, we got a decent chunk for him. I think Almada might break that though. I mean, just with how he's playing right now, with how he's growing so quickly, only 21 years old as well, I really do think there's going to be a club, whether it's Spain, Germany, England, I don't know. Personally, I think a Spanish club would probably be a better fit for him just because he is a little bit smaller. So he's not, I don't think he'd fit in with the rough and tumble at the Premier League. Honestly, I was surprised that Almiron finally found a way to fit in with that league because of how he was a bit smaller as well, like bit taller, but not quite as strong. So I do feel like Almada, for him, a move to the Premier League wouldn't be the best, but I could see, one of like, trying to think of a good example, like an Atletico Bilbao, or I don't even know if they're still in the top anymore or not, but a club like that, like not necessarily Barca or Real, but one of the better clubs, Sevilla, Valencia, I think are still up there. One of those clubs, I feel like he would do well to go there and ply his trade, really grow as a player. I kind of expect that to happen. And the question is, will we get a good chunk for him or not? I do think, based on how he's playing right now, based on how he's growing, the fact that he is getting more look-ins with the Argentina national team, I kind of expect him to go for a good chunk of money. And hopefully we'll use that effectively and not whatever we did with the money that we got for Almiron. And that just comes down to Boca, and again, I still don't think he's going to help us in that respect, so still hoping for him to leave, even though we're doing well right now. Another player I do want to talk about, though, is Caleb Wiley, because he's a player, 18 years old. He was thrust into the team last season and did okay. His main asset that he brought to the team was his pace and his energy out there. But he really was thrown in when he was not ready for the MLS. And that showed in a few games last season where his touch wasn't quite as good. He wasn't as good at reading the play. But he had to play because we didn't have another option at left back, unfortunately, and Gutmann was out. But this season, he's come in more as a left wing. And I do feel like that fits him a little bit better because he's not required to do as much defensive work. And he's allowed to use that pace to get him behind. And he's doing it effectively. He's already got, 3, maybe 4 goals? I think it's 3 goals this season. And that's, for an 18-year-old, that's pretty good in the first 4 matches to already have multiple goals to your name. So he's not necessarily setting the league alight or anything, but he's coming along pretty smoothly, and he's fitting in with these players who are quality players. So if he can continue to progress and continue to grow his own game, I would expect to see him maybe start to dominate the league in a couple years, and then also maybe get some look-ins from some bigger teams as well. So Araujo is kind of the one player for me who, when I watch him, he's good, but he is the most individualistic player that I've seen so far this season, and hopefully he'll grow out of that. Hopefully we'll start connecting a bit more. But of all the players that I've seen up top, he's the one that tends to dwell on the ball a little too long. He tends to try to take too many players on instead of trying to find a pass. So he's still got a little bit of growing to do, but he's looking solid though, and he's already found the net a few times. So I think he's still a good player. He's just got to find those passes a little bit more often than he dribbles into pressure. And then Giakoumakis up top got his first goal against Portland. Obviously haven't seen much from him, but from what I have seen, he looks a competent striker, which is good because we've had some duds a couple seasons prior. So it's nice to see that, yes, we did go get a striker who can hold his own, it seems. Obviously, we'll see long-term if he can be as effective for us as Joseph was. But early signs are he looks decent enough. He looks good enough to at least be a striker for us. And at the very least, even if he's not scoring excuse me, even if he's not scoring a ton of goals, he's at least allowing the players behind him, like Almada, like Wiley, like Araujo, he's allowing them to be effective with the runs that he makes. And that's something, I've talked about in my Chelsea reviews. You need a striker up there who knows what runs to make to open up the space for those talented players. He doesn't even have to be a fantastic striker. As long as he's making those runs and as long as he's opening up space for people and drawing defenders, that's really what you need. So if he can continue to do that, from what I've seen, he's doing it pretty well. And again, he looks competent. He's not burying everything, but at least the shots he's taking, they're on target, they're threatening, they're forcing the keeper to make a save. They seem like decent shots. So hopefully he does find his scoring boots, but even if he doesn't, as long as he's helping the players behind him, that's perfectly fine for me. Outside of that, there's not really much, because again, I haven't really gotten to watch the full games for the past couple. Obviously, we've only let in 3 goals this season, so it's not necessarily bad, especially considering where we were last season. I do think having Robinson, having Guzan back in, it does help, just because Robinson is a good defender, and Guzan, I think, is a bit more of a leader back there than we've had in the past. I still do worry, though, when we go up against better opposition, because right now, results-wise, San Jose is the best team that we faced. They got 2 wins and 2 losses. That's the best team that we faced so far. Everybody else, 1 win, and then I think Toronto had 2 draws, and the other 2, I think, had 3 losses. So it's not necessarily been difficult opposition. So when we face better teams that have better attacks, we've got Columbus this weekend, who's not doing great, but then we've got New York City next weekend. That's going to be a difficult game. They have talented players there. So is our defense going to be able to hold up under the scrutiny? It's hard to say. We have let in a couple cheap ones so far against teams that weren't great. However, it's kind of one of those things where if we're exciting and if we're scoring a lot, the defense, you want them to keep clean sheets. You want them to keep the other team from scoring, but it's not the most important thing. If your offense is scoring so much that the other team, they can have 1 or 2 goals and we still beat them comfortably, that's fine. I think it's more so me. I'm the type of person that I want my team to be defensively solid. I like clean sheets. I like whenever we can keep the other team from scoring. I just prefer that because it's a good team performance in that sense. It's not just, your attack is really good. And I tend to prefer that. However, I don't think we really have that kind of defense, unfortunately. And just looking at the players we have back there, even looking at our midfield and seeing the defensive midfield that we have, I don't really think it's a solid defensive structure there. So I do expect us to give up some goals this season. But it does feel like it's not going to be as easy. Because last season, there was just way too often where it was just easy pass, goal. This season, it's still happening, but it's happening, I'd say, half as much. So it's good to see that having Robinson back in, having our starting keeper, even though he is a bit older, and I do think he is a little slower to react to shots, I think having them back there does at least bolster our defense enough to where we can see out some matches when we need the defense's help. So are we set up to go and win, the MLS Cup, the league, what's it called? It's something Shield, I think. Supporter Shield? Is that what it is? Whatever it is for winning. It's so weird to me that the MLS Cup is considered a bigger thing than winning the league overall. Like, that's, again, coming from a person who's watched the Premier League, you win the Premier League, that's huge. Because you had to be the best over several matches. Whereas you win, like, the FA Cup, still a big deal, but you just had to win the one match and then the one match and then the one match. And it was just it was one-offs, which is still difficult to do, but you can do it. You don't have to be the best team to win those one-off matches. You just have to win. We just have to win this one, and then we just have to win this one. The league, you have to win a lot of games. It's like Mourinho has said in the past, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, whereas tournaments are much more sprints. So, in my opinion, it's always been more impressive to win the league than it is to win a few one-off matches. And yet, the MLS Cup is treated like, no, that's the big one to win. I never understood that. But anyways, Are we going to win either of those this season? It's hard to say. I definitely think we look like we're going to make playoffs, at least so far. Obviously, we saw last season injuries can happen at any time. They can be really bad, and suddenly you're missing a few key players that you're going to need to win anything. So there is still that possibility. Based on how we're playing at the moment, though, I do feel like we will be in with a shout, at least, to be one of the best teams, to be up there challenging for the shield, the supporter shield, I think it's called. We will be in and around that area, and I do think we have a decent chance to make a good run in the playoffs and challenge for the MLS Cup again. I just don't think, because we are lacking in defense and we are lacking a bit in the midfield, I don't think we have a complete team to really put together a complete performance in every single match. We'll beat the teams that we should be beating. Obviously we're showing that we can do that, but I don't think we'll be beating a lot of those better teams like your New York Cities, like New England this season, like apparently St. Louis, or LAFC is another one. I don't really think we'll be beating them consistently, so that's where I feel like we will falter a little bit. And unfortunately, unless we do some business in the summer, I just don't see that changing, because again, our defense just doesn't really look solid enough in my opinion. And again, in the midfield, we still look a little weak. We're still having to rely on Sejdic. Like that in and of itself should show you we don't have enough to win everything this season. So hopefully we can make some changes there, or hopefully some players will start to grow a bit. If Ibarra can grow and turn into that kind of the Carmona or the Laurentowicz, the bully in the midfield, then yeah, we've got a better chance. If Parada or Abram, if either of them can be a bit more of a conductor back there, because Robinson he's the LGP, he's the bully, he's gonna go around, run around and hit people and take the ball off of them. He's that type of player, but he needs somebody to organize everything. That's why Parkhurst was so effective back there. We just don't have that right now. I feel like we have several defenders that are more LGP. They're chasing the ball, they're running around, but without somebody to organize them, they're just running around. So unless these players do start to grow, unless Pineda can find a way to make them work in a way that is consistently effective, I don't think we'll be winning much this season, if anything. But at the very least, we are looking more exciting. We are looking more dangerous going forward. And that is something to be said. We didn't really have that last season. We didn't have a lot to get excited about. So it's at least a step in the right direction that we are getting more excited. There is something to enjoy in these matches. But looking long term, looking again from the mindset of somebody who wanted our club to be a bit different than your typical MLS club who goes and wins and then doesn't win and doesn't win and then wins again and then doesn't win. I wanted us to be constantly challenging every year and sort of setting a new mold for what an MLS team should look like. And unfortunately, we just aren't that right now. So we'll see if that changes, but with all that being said, that's all I've got. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Or your thoughts on these first 4 matches of the season. What do you expect to see going forward? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Atlanta United talks whenever I do it. And I'll see you guys when I see you. Peace out.